Meaning of transportation model. The transportation model is formulated for a class of problems with the following unique characteristics. The first one is a product is transported from a number of sources to a number of destinations at the minimum possible cost. The second one, the last one, each source is able to supply a fixed number of units of the products, and each destination has a fixed demand for the product. Although the general transportation model can be applied to a wide variety of problems, it is this particular application for the transportation of goods that is familiar and from which the problem draws its name. What is transportation model? Transportation model, the growth and development of transportation provides a medium contributing to the progress of agriculture, industry, commerce, administration, defense, education, health, or any other community activity. Many of the regional characteristics that are influencing the layout of the existing transformational system are the creation of their antecedent transformational features. Transportation model is a special type of network that can shipping a commodity from source to destination, like example, from factory to warehouse. It's deal with the get minimum cost plan to transport a commodity from a number of sources to a number of destinations. According to White and Senior, 1983, in their book entitled Transport Geography, they considered 5 basic factors and which influence the growth and development of transport system in the ways in which changes takes place. The first one, the historical factor. Factor is this involves the location and pattern of system, technological development, and institutional development and settlement and land use patterns. The second one is technological factor. The characteristics of technological of each major transport mode are considered together with a discussion of the effects of technological advances. The third one is physical factors. This includes physiographic control upon route selection and geological and climatic influences. The fourth one, economic factors. The structure and nature of transport costs are examined together with the service, quality, and method of pricing and charging. The last one, but not the least, political and social factors. This includes political motives for transport facilities, government involvement in capital, monopolies and competition, safety and working condition and coordination between modes. Transport as employees, and the social consequences of transport development. In quantitative, transportation model is a special type of linear programming problem where the objective is to minimize the cost of distributing a number of destinations. Because of its special structure, the usual simplex method is not suitable for solving transportation problem. There are 5 types of transportation. The first one is road transportation, the second one is rail transportation, the third is marine transportation, the fourth one is air transportation, and the last one is intermodal transportation.
We are through with the overview and background of transportation model on the 5 types of transportation and the factors which influence the growth and development of a transport system. So in transport system, transportation problems is inevitable. So now we are going to discuss the balanced and unbalanced transportation problems using 2 methods, the stepping-stone method and the modified distribution method. So first, we're going to discuss the balanced transportation problems using stepping-stone method. So what is a balanced transportation problems? How do we consider what problems is to be considered balanced transportation problem? So when both supplies and demand are equal, it is to be considered a balanced transportation problems. So let's remember that when both supplies and demand are equal, so it is to be considered as a balanced transportation problem. So there are 3 methods in solving transportation problems. we can choose from any of these three methods. We have the northwest corner cell method first. So second is the Vogel's approximation method, or the VAM, and the third one is the minimum cost method. So any of these three methods will do in solving for transportation problems. So stepping stone method. So what is stepping stone method? So it is an interactive technique for moving from an initial feasible solution to an optimal feasible solution. So it is a movement or a method for moving from an initial feasible solution to a more optimal or pinakamainam na solusyon para maresolba ang problema sa transportasyon. So ano ba ang pinakamainam? Anong ibig sabihin ng pinakamainam? So tayo ay naghahanap ng mga ways to solve for transportation problem para ito ay maging optimal feasible solution or maging best or maging most favorable solution na gagamitin para mag-solve sa mga transportation problems. So here we have two distinct parts of the process. So sa proseso natin, madadaanan natin itong dalawang steps. We have this, testing the current solution to determine if improvement is possible. So ito-check mo or ito-test mo kung may pwede pa bang i-improve sa solution, or dapat pa ba siyang i-improve, or may magagawa pa bang improvement. So after that, making changes to the current solution to obtain an improved solution. So pag nakuha mo pag na-determine mo na improvement, kung posible ba improvement, you are to make changes to the current solution para ma-obtain mo yung improved solution or yung most favorable solution or the optimal feasible solution.
At this point of our report, we're going to talk about the ways and finding the least cost solution using the stepping stone method. So, first of all, we're going to talk about the very important rule in finding the least cost solution. So here, the number of occupied routes or squares must always be equal to 1 less than the sum of the number of rows plus the number of columns. So we have here the formula, guys. So ito na yung formula natin to find the least cost solution. So as you can see, the occupied shipping routes or square is equal to number of rows plus number of columns minus 1. So ano itong sinasabi ko, guys? So ito na yung sa table natin sa transportation problem na ginagawa natin. And then take note that when the number of occupied rows is less than this, the solution is called degenerate. So ano ibig sabihin nito? It means that if the occupied shipping routes is unequal to the number of rows plus the number of columns minus 1, it means degenerate siya. So ano nga ba itong tinatawag nating degenerate? So a basic feasible solution is degenerate if at least one, remember that, guys, if at least one of the basic variables is equal to 0. And then a standard form linear optimization problem is degenerate if at least one of its basic feasible solution is degenerate. So yun yung meaning ng degenerate. So testing solution of possible improvement. So in this part, guys, the stepping stone method works. So nag-work siya by testing each unused square in the transportation table. So ito na yung tinatawag natin kanina, yung transportation table. So dito makikita natin yung number of columns and number of rows. So ano ito siya? So dito makikita natin yung from point A to point B. So ano yung point A, point B? So yung point A natin is yun yung saan galing yung product, and so point B is saan siya i-deliver. So ang main goal nito, guys, is to find or to para malaman natin kung saan yung to find the shipping cost, di ba? Using this table, mas malalaman natin if ano yung magiging shipping cost kung i-deliver na natin yung products from different points to our receiver. So dito matitest natin if yung cost ba natin is okay lang or makakasave ba tayo kung itong route yung gagamitin natin or kung mas mahal ba yung route. So dito mas mapipili natin kung saan yung possible or yung optimal feasible na way para sa pag-deliver natin ng ating products. So if one unit of the product were tentatively shipped on unused route, so there are 5 steps in this process. So here, guys, we have 5 steps for testing the solution for possible improvement sa pag-deliver natin. So first is, or sa ating transportation table. So the first step is select an unused square to evaluate. So, sa transportation table natin guys, magpili tayo ng isang unused square. So, yan, di ba? Kung mayroon tayong unused square, hanapin natin yun. Then, kung napili na natin yun, proceed na tayo sa step 2. Then, the step 2 is beginning at this square. So, yun sa napili mong square na yun, trace a closed path back to the original square via squares that are currently being used with only horizontal or vertical moves allowed. So, magpili tayo ng another squares para matrace natin, magpili tayo ng ng squares via squares that are currently being used. So, yun guys, pag nahanap na natin yon, pwede na tayo mag-proceed sa step 3. So, ano tong step 3? So, guys, medyo complex lang tong sakuan natin dito sa process na ito kasi medyo mahirap kung wala siyang graph or wala tayong transportation table. Pero, I'll try my best to explain it further para mas maintindihan natin ng maayos. So, ang third step natin is kung nakapili na tayo yung 4 na squares na yon, kasali na yung unused table, beginning with a plus sign, yung sa unused table, maglagay tayo ng plus sign, and alternately, place minus signs and plus signs on each other squares of the closed path just trace. So, doon sa napili natin na yung trace natin na closed path, so 4 yun guys yung unused, consistent dapat yan na plus sign yung ilagay natin. Yung 3 is alternately plus sign, ay minus sign, plus sign, and minus sign. So, ganon. Pag nalagay na natin yon, proceed na tayo sa step 4. So, sa step 4 natin is calculate an improvement. So, yan na, nandyan sa slide natin. Calculate an improvement index by adding together the unit cost figures found in each squares. So, dito, let's going to add yung may mga same, i-add natin yung may same na sign. For example, yung positive signs, we're going to add them. And yung may mga negative signs is we're going to subtract them. So, yung dalawa na positive sign is we're going to add them together. And yung dalawa na negative signs is we're going to subtract them together. Containing a plus sign and then subtracting the unit cost and each square is containing a minus sign. So, ayun na siya guys. Then, step 5, the last step is we're going to repeat steps 1 to 4 until an improvement index. So, simulan ulit natin sa start hanggang balik natin sa 4. Step 4, para mahanap na natin yung improved index. Kung nakalculate na natin yung improved index for all unused squares. So, it is possible na sa ating transportation table is hindi lang isa ang unused table. So, if meron pang iba, we're going to repeat this process again from the step 1 to step 5. And then, if all indices computed are greater than or equal to 0, an optimal solution has been reached. So, yun, kung more than 0 na siya, na-reach na natin yung optimal feasible solution. If not, it is possible to improve the current solution and decrease total shipping cost.
Stepping-stone method, balanced transportation problem. The stepping-stone method is used to check the optimality of the initial feasibility solution determined by using any of the methods: this northwest corner, less cost method, or blocks approximation method. Thus, the Stepping-stones method is produced for finding the potential of any non-basic variables and empty cells in terms of the adjective function. Stepping-stone method ay meron siyang mga method na ginagamit like north, west, corner, less cost method, or blocks approximation method. Ang stepping-stone method ay meron din mga product at gaproduce sila kung paano makuha ang potential ng non-basic variables or empty cells, term na tinatawag. Stepping-stone method to find the optimal solution of the transportation problem. Consider the following transportation problem cost in rupees. Sa table na din distributor, factor, A, B, C, D, E, F, and requirements. Sa DS na ay linya na 276. Ang requirement niya is 15. Ang sa E naman is 1, 3, 5. Ang requirement niya is 2. sa first table, ma-find out mo na minimum cost of the given transportation problem. Kaya nga solution, we compute an initial basic feasibility solution of the problem by mixed matrix measurement method as shown in table 1. So, dali, makita na nimo kung paano siya gin-solve. Naapod siya, sa table 1 is, plain, wala siya sang, like, kari, sa second nga table, na karang, square root na 13, or 7 square root of 13, then 6 square root of 2, 1 square root of 10, 3 square root of 2. So, F naman is 3a square root of 8. Kung i-plus nimo ang 13 plus 2 is equal to 15. Ang siya ang gana-recommend sa sa problem. Then sa E, same lang pagyapon again ang here m plus n minus 1 is equal to 5. So the solution is not degenerate. Initial basic feasibility solution. Kali naman na yung box na makita dala, diba? So ang is 1 times 10 plus 7 plus 13 plus 3 times 12 plus 6 times 3 times 2 plus 3 times 18 is equal to 108. The cell AD2 is empty, so allocate 1 unit to it. Now draw a closed path. Ang closed path na ginatawag is plus 2 plus 1, negative 7, 12, negative 1, 9, positive 3, 13. Tara siya ang karing box nga niya siya ginatawag na closed path. So the increase in the transportation cost per unit quality of relocation is 2 plus minus 1 plus 3 minus 7 is equal to negative 3. So kung mga tanong kabukasan ko aning karing 2 plus minus 1 minus 3 minus 7 diri sa closed path.
So the next topic I will be discussing is about modified distribution method, balanced transportation problems. But before I will start, there is a question that goes, how can we say that a problem is a balanced transportation problem? And the answer is, a problem can be considered as a balanced transportation problem if both of the supplies and demands are equal. From the word itself balance, the both parties should be always equal. Methods on solving transportation problems. There are 3 ways or methods for determining the initial solutions of the problems. They are, number 1, Northwest Corner Style Method. Number 2, Vogel's Approximation Method or VAM. And number 3 is Least Call Cell Method. Balanced transportation problem. Here at the illustration, the table is the basic framework of the balanced transportation problem. There is a source, there is a destination, there is a supply, and there is a demand. The destinations D1, D2, D3, and D4 that you can see in the above table are where the products or goods will be delivered from sources O1, O2, O3, and O4. The supply from the source on the left side is represented by SI on the right side. If a product is delivered from source SI to destination DJ, then the cost is called CIJ.
This topic talks about modified distribution method, the unbalanced transportation problem. First of all, what is modified distribution method? This method is also known as MODI, is an efficient method of checking the optimality of the initial feasible solution. It means ito ang pinakamainam na paraan to answer problems about transportation. This method also allows us to compute the improvement indices quickly. About transportation problem. Transportation problem is a distribution type problem, and its goal is to decide how to transfer goods from various sending location to various receiving location with minimal cost or maximum profit. It is used in airline industry, research and development, traveling salesman, and transshipment. So, transportation problem is, sa mga business is, kinakailangan na makakita tayo ng paraan to less our cost atong mga expenses, and one of this is the transportation problem. So, Unbalanced transportation problem is defined as situation in which supply and demand are no equal. So, ang unbalanced transportation problem is the demand or ang mga demand is not equal to supplies. A dummy row or a dummy column is added to this type of problem depending on the necessity to make it balanced problem. The problem can be addressed in the same way as the balanced problem. So, ang unbalanced problem, if the transportation problem is unbalanced, may mga row man yan, may mga row, may mga columns. So, if unbalanced ang imong transportation problem, then you should add row or add column depende sa kung ano ang kulang, then dun ka mag-add to make it balanced transportation problem. So, ang unbalanced not because na unbalanced transportation problem siya, dili na siya mahimong balance. You can make it balance if you add columns or rows depende sa kinakailangan. Next is, there are two phases to solve transportation problem. In the first phase, the initial basic feasible solution has to be found, and the second phase involves optimization of the initial basic feasible solution that was obtained in the first phase. There are three methods for finding initial basic feasible solution. So, transportation problem has two phases. The first is initial basic feasible solution has to be found. So, kailangan makakita pa jud ka og kanang solution jud, dapat makita nimo ang initial solution. Then the second phase involves optimization of the initial basic feasible solution. So, ang imong nakita nga solution sa first phase ato i-optimize. Then the three methods of finding the initial basic feasible solution. First is the northwest corner method. Then the second is least cost cell method. The third one is Vogel's approximation method. This will discuss how to optimize the initial basic feasible solution through an explained example.
Sa modified distribution method and balanced transportation problem, there are two phases to solve the transportation problem. In the first phase, the initial basic feasible solution has to be found, and second phase involves optimization of the initial basic feasible solution that was obtained in the first phase. So, sa example ay ang transportation problem, which it has indicated the destination, the source, the supply, and its demand. And we will go first with step 1. So, step 1, we are to identify whether the problem is balanced or not. And if the total sum of all the supply, yung nasa right portion, yung supply, is equal to the total sum of all the demands, yung nasa ilalim, then the transportation problem is balanced. So, paano kung hindi siya balance? So, yun po yung topic namin about sa balanced transportation problem. So, how about if it is not balanced? We can say it's not balanced because yung supply niya and yung demand niya, yung supply yung nandito sa right side, yung sa right side, and then the demand is yung nasa ilalim. If hindi equal yung total ng dalawa, then masasabi natin ito ay isang unbalanced transportation problem. And in order to make it balance, kailangan natin gumamit ng yung tinatawag nating concept of dummy row or dummy column. It can be applied, like for example, if the supply is more than the demand, then we will apply the dummy column doon sa demand. So, we'll get this, and we are to create the dummy demand column. As being shown in the example, the difference of the total supply and total demand will be given to that column. So, yung total ng supply, like for example, 117, i-deduct natin yun siya dun sa total ng demand, which is na mas mababa doon sa supply, which is na 117 minus 95 is equals to 22. So, the 22 will be applied to at the last portion of that column. Kaya siya natawag na dummy, it's because we will only apply the 22 at the last part, pero yung row niya mismo is walang laman. And after that, we will add that 22 to the demand, and then we get the 117, the same total with the supply. So, ngayon balance na siya. So, we have here an example once you made your transportation problem balance. A little example to emphasize the modified distribution method. So, kapag balance na ang transport problem, we can now use any of the method to get the cost of transportation. So, dito sa topic namin, we will use the northwest corner method. So, after getting the cost transportation na ginamit natin doon sa northwest corner method, we can now use the modified distribution method or yung UV method na tinatawag natin para ma-optimize yung initial feasible solution. And after getting the values of U and V, dun sa tinatawag UV method, we are to solve the penalties for unallocated cells. And at ang rule nito, kapag lahat ng value ng penalty ay 0 or negative, then it is the final answer. Kapag naman hindi, we will continue to progress to reach the optimality. Parang we will continue to get that 0 and negative hanggang sa maging negative lahat or maging 0 lahat yung tinatawag nating penalty value. And then, nagbigay lang kami ng ilang example to emphasize na kapag balance, ano yung dapat na gawin kapag naging balance yung isang transportation problem. But our topic is only focused to the unbalanced transportation problem. Which yung na-topic kanina, yung kapag hindi balance yung supply and demand, we will adjust the demand kung yung demand yung may kulang. And if yung supply naman yung may kulang, we will also adjust the supply para maging balance sila. So, sa problem ng unbalanced transportation problem, we only need to adjust kung ano yung lacking, like for example, lacking sa demand or lacking sa supply. We are to use what I have said earlier, the concept of dummy row or dummy column. So, the modified distribution method is an improvement over the stepping stone method. It can be applied more efficiently when a large number of sources and destinations are involved, which becomes quite difficult to tedious in case of stepping stone method. So, the modified distribution method reduces the numbers of steps involved in the evaluation of empty cells, thereby minimizes the complexity and gives a straightforward computational scheme through which the opportunity cost of each empty cell can be determined. So that would be all with my topic, and thank you.